It was 2020 when I started this video script for Makoto Shinkai, but for some reason my PC broke down and even took down all the data along with it. So Makoto Shinkai, I can confidently say that I am one of the OG fans of the anime director. It's because it was around the year 2000 to 2005. I was already watching some of his independent animations. From his raw animations like She and Her Cat, and his first ever legendary one-man-only anime. Digital anime production at that time was so hard, because the technology we have today was non-existent. But he had a story to tell and he had no meddling producer to boss him around. As an independent animator, the path he took to get to where he is now was very challenging, because at that time there was no way to easily get noticed by the buying public. But he did it anyway, because you don't need money if what you are doing is a passion project. The first full-feature anime he was able to make was the short anime movie, Voices of a Distant Star. The concept of the story was very simple. Basically, there are two childhood friends. First was the lady space pilot Mikako Nagamine, and her childhood lover that was left on Earth, Nobuo. The two continue to communicate across space, using the email facilities on their mobile telephones. As the Lesethia travels deeper into space, messages take increasingly longer to reach Nobuo on Earth, and the time lag of their correspondence eventually spans years. The concept of the story was about the effect of time, space, and distance to the ones we love. For me, those who have separation anxiety are the only ones who I think are capable of conceiving such an idea for a sci-fi romance. The story tackles the question, what if it takes light years for two people who love each other to communicate? How long will each of them hold on to their feelings for each other? Because naturally, how will you say to yourself to hold on to that special person, even if you don't know if that person is still alive? And if you're the one in deep space, fighting an existential threat to mankind, how will you properly function if at any moment the reminder of death is always right beside you? How can you bear the reality of knowing that your feelings might not have been able to reach the one that gives you the strength to live on? Questions like, was I able to tell him that I love him for the last time? Did my message reach him? Our next movie was The Place Promised from our early days. Its setting was several years in an alternate history where the Soviet Union occupies half of Japan. It follows two childhood friends who grow apart after one of their friends disappears. As international tensions rise and a mysterious tower built by the Union started replacing matter around it with matter from other universes, they cross paths once again and realize their missing friend might be the key to saving the world. Makoto Shinkai leveled up his animation style with this one. His second work looked like a proper Japanese anime. Gone are the indie-type amateurish-looking character visuals. This had a very good core idea for the story, but it had poor execution. Though for me it's about people who are in a comatose state and how their condition affects their loved ones. If Voices of a Distant Star was all about separation, in this movie it deals with the scenario where you are very close to the person you love, but there is no reciprocation of that love, because their consciousness is imprisoned by their medical condition. So another romantic childhood couple. It tackles the effects of time, distance, and weather to the people who love each other in their youthful years. It's a coming into maturity story. At first, when the two couple were young and in love, they create ways on how to see each other, riding long hours of train rides and ignoring the very cold weather. These are the innocent days of youth, when you don't even need a very good reason to see someone. The act of meeting that special person was enough. The anticipation and that feeling when the other person reciprocates the same sacrifices of going out of his or her own way just to meet you. But the very core of the story is appreciating the moment. The pacing of the story is deliberately slow to make you feel the slow passage of time when you are waiting for somebody. 5 centimeters per second is the speed of cherry blossoms when it falls from the ground. The theme of just being there in that specific moment. No distractions, just you and your full attention to what is in front of you. Because the present moment is the only thing we really have. This next movie must be the one that really brought him worldwide recognition. Makoto Shinkai's films have garnered a huge cult-like following. Your Name is a very simple title for a movie. This has got to be the movie that made me a die-hard cult follower of his works. Because for some reason, I am really fascinated on who or what entity is Makoto Shinkai praying to or worshipping, to be able to come up with such out-of-the-box plots that I have never encountered through my 30 years of watching anime. Basically, the heroine of our story, Mitsuha, a very bored provincial girl, wants to leave the calm and slow countryside life, and one day wants to work in the metropolitan areas. And we also have Taki Tachibana, who lives in Tokyo. Taki is actually and constantly under stress. Due to the fast-paced city life, he has a very hectic schedule, from school to part-time work. As someone who went through the same kind of ordeal, studying while working is not a very good combination. Because at the end of a very long day, you are already tired, unmotivated, and burned out. That's why I have a very high respect for people who are able to do both. Our story begins when both of them are intermittently switching bodies on certain days. Because of a small wish by our girl Mitsuha to be able to experience a small change of pace in her life, she turned an incoming comet named Tiamat into a wishing well. Taki and Mitsuha wake up in each other's bodies and must live the entire day as the other. Sometimes a not-so-specified wish can turn into a problem. There are times in our lives that we think wishes can come true. The problem is that we are inept in describing what we really want. Maybe developing the skill of describing the things we want in full detail is the key to acquiring something. The two set up ground rules for sharing their bodies, communicating via messages on paper, their phones, and their skin. They have no choice but to help each other. Because people might notice the sudden change of their mentality. Because of the soul switching, our two protagonists underwent a massive change on how they view themselves. The catch is, there is a teeny tiny problem. For every wish there is always an equivalent trade. No free stuff. That's not permitted, said by the universe. Because when Taki Google searched Mitsuha's prefecture, he found out that it was already erased from the face of Japan. Tiamat the comet, which was the wish granter, was responsible for the destruction of Mitsuha's prefecture. It was an extinction event, like what had happened to the dinosaurs. After the disaster, only a giant crater was left. Taki warned Mitsuha of the impending disaster, because both of them have different timelines. Knowing this, Mitsuha took it upon herself to save her hometown. She coordinated her high school classmates to guide the townsfolk who will attend the yearly festival out of the disaster area. They were all apprehended, and Mitsuha was scolded by his father, who was also the mayor, for ordering an evacuation. But the comet came down and all of the townsfolk were saved. So our best girl is off the hook. Before this whole fiasco happened, Taki and Mitsuha had a one-on-one moment. For the first time they met, you would actually think that they have feelings for each other. Somehow something developed. Or was it something more? One of the most used elements of Japanese romances is the so-called red threads of fate. It's a thin red line that connects you and your soulmate. For whatever happens, you two are bound for each other. This is a fresh take to the red threads of fate. Because of this, a time travel event was smoothly utilized to further enhance the gravity of what the red threads can actually accomplish. Both of their souls were going back in time to find each other, defying the divine plan of events that God himself laid out already. They actually managed to change the said timeline. Mitsuha and everyone else in the village were able to live.